Hi everyone, welcome back to AfrOzcentric. Thank you so much for joining us. Today we have an amazing guest with us today. So I'm just going to let you introduce yourself. So just what's your name and what you do at the moment and a bit of your heritage.
Thank you, Hola and AfroCentric, for having me. Before I introduce myself, I'd like to acknowledge the Aboriginal owners and custodians of the land,
Yeah.
present, past, and future. So my name is Vera Williams Tete. I am African Australian woman. I was born in Ghana, um, and I am from the Ga Adangme
Okay.
tribe of Ghana.
Yeah.
So I speak Ga, which
Okay.
is my mother tongue. And when I was growing up, we moved to Koforidua, which is a Tree Akan speaking area. So I speak Tree and or Akan.
Okay.
And I can read and write in both Ga, Akan, and
Oh,
English.
that's amazing.
Yeah.
um,
What
so
else?
so just a bit of your career, like when you came here, what did you do?
So I came here in 1992.
Yeah.
I joined my husband um, in 1992 in Australia. But before I talk a bit more about joining him, I'll give a background of my education in Ghana.
That'll be great.
So I did my primary and secondary education in Ghana, and I was aspiring to go to university. Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Yeah.
My friends and my peers were still in contact to today. Um, I went to a Brig Girls Secondary School, so yeah. And so they went ahead of me, and I ended up finding a job. I was working at the State Insurance Corporation in Ghana then. And that is where one day one of my peers introduced me to my future husband. So even though I didn't go to university, I mean, that's my path in life.
Yeah.
And as we know, life is not linear.
Of
So that's
course.
how I got to be in Australia. Well, before then, just as I had gained admission to go to University of Ghana, which was one of my dreams,
Yeah.
then he came along and wanted us to get married and come to Australia. So I said, okay, well, we'll go to Australia and then life can unfold there as well.
Yeah.
So that's how I came in 92. When I came, it was quite interesting because life was quite different. In Ghana, we study in English. Ghana is a former colonial colony, British colony, so we speak English. We
Yeah.
were totally educated in English, did things in English. So if you've been to secondary school in Ghana, I'm sure you'd say that you speak English well.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, when I came here, language became a problem.
Of
People
course.
couldn't understand me, and I couldn't understand them either. I thought, what is going on? What?
It was with the accent.
Oh my God! It was just really interesting trying to navigate that language terrain with my different Ghanaian English and
Yeah.
accent, and trying to make life here. That was quite hard. Um, and getting a job was another thing.
Of course.
I was in State Insurance Corporation working in an office. There was nothing like that here for me.
Yeah.
So I worked as a checkout operator at Franklin's. Franklin's is no more in operation, but yes, that's where I started my career here. Um, and then my children came along. I've got two boys,
Yeah.
two young men, I'd like
Okay.
to call them.
Of course.
And they came along, and I decided that I could do Franklin's for a bit. That I needed to build on the foundation that Ghana had given me.
Yeah.
So I decided that I would go to university to continue that dream that my father had for me. I mean,
Yeah.
with all the investment that the family had given me growing up. So I applied to go to Macquarie University as a mature age student. And yes, in 2002, I started my undergraduate studies at Macquarie University. It
Yeah.
was quite interesting because I had no idea what I was going to do at university then.
Of course.
And I had no one to help me choose my subjects.
Yeah.
I was just going with my own instincts. What was I good at when I was in school? What are my interests?
Yeah.
And I started doing four subjects. I wanted to do it
Wow.
full time, four subjects. I wanted to do it
And you
full
were
time,
working.
and I was working part time. And I was a mother, and I was a wife, and
Wow.
I was a sister, and I was everything
How was
else.
juggling that? Because I know that, like, for me personally, even now, just having uni and work, I'm struggling, and I can't just imagine you having to do all of that at once. How was that?
It was really hard. I look back and I think, how did I do it?
Yeah.
How did I do? I was working part time. I was working full time. I'd take my top to work
Yeah.
and wear it on top of um,
Wow.
my work uniform and go to class and then come straight. So I had to choose my lectures. It wasn't like it was online these days that we have. No,
Yeah.
you had to be there physically.
And you couldn't skip
And
some
you couldn't
classes
skip some
either.
classes. So you just had to fit it all in, come home, cook, clean, look after your children, do homework, get them to bed, sit behind the computer, learn
Oh my.
some computer skills, and just get on with it.
Oh wow.
That was hard, but at the end of the 3 years, I
Yeah.
had my first degree from Macquarie University. But the interesting thing and what got me where I am now was I started doing, with the four subjects I started doing were English literature,
Yeah.
um, sociology, philosophy, and linguistics. So that's the four core subjects that I started off with. And I found myself doing very well in linguistics.
Yeah.
And so that kind of led me into that direction because I could relate to some of the things in linguistics. We all use language in
Of
society.
course.
We use it in various ways. And I found that I had that natural knack with language, but I didn't quite know how to use the concepts or understand what fits what in a systematic sort of way. So that's what linguistics gave me, what I naturally had. And I built on it. And of course, I had a very good mentor then.
Yeah.
So Dr. Werner Rieschild was my mentor during my undergraduate years. And so after I had done the 3 years full time finished, I was invited to come and do my honors year because I did so well. I thought,
Yeah.
oh my God, that's quite interesting.
Of course.
Yeah, so I did the honors year still with Dr. Rieschild as my mentor.
Yeah.
And then I did so well. And she said, I think you should do the PhD. I'm like, no. That hadn't even crossed my mind. The whole idea was to go and do the first degree, get a decent job, and get on with life in
Yeah.
Australia. But then Verna identified something else. So that was good. So I listened to her and I applied for the scholarship to do the PhD.
Yeah.
So that was also quite interesting because it was the mainstream scholarships was the APA.
Yeah.
So I was hoping to get the APA. Unfortunately, I didn't get it. And as a migrant wife, mother, woman, family member, you need income. So
You
then I
do.
can't do PhD without an income. So
Yeah.
my prayer was, God, if this is the direction you want me to go in, then I want a scholarship so I'll be able to juggle that because
Yeah.
our family needs my income.
Yeah.
So at this time too, I was doing a bit of tutoring around because Verna made sure that I got some work as well,
Yeah.
which was really great, and it's slowly carving me into the
Of course.
academia.
Yeah.
So waited, no PhD.
Oh,
I mean,
no.
no scholarship. And then in December 2006, I got this beautiful phone call towards the end of the year
Yeah.
that I had received they called it the MQIES scholarship
Okay.
to for 4 years to do my PhD. I was over the moon. It
Yeah.
was just fantastic. And that's how the whole journey started.
Wow, that sounds already full on. But I'm like interested in the idea of you coming here from Ghana and you having to do like your bachelor, your masters while you're working, you're raising your family. How was it? Because I know that a lot of African people who are educated back home, they come here and they have to start from the bottom all over again. Just can you tell me just a little bit about how that made you feel and how did you deal with that? Because I can imagine that being really hard considering that you were like excelling in education back home and then now you come here and it's like you have to work in a supermarket. That must be really hard for you.
So you said that you come from the bottom.
Yeah.
It's not from the bottom. You go -0. You go underneath.
That's
the
it,
bottom.
honestly.
It's not the bottom. You go underneath, and then you
Yeah.
have to find yourself and find that inner strength to rise.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. You don't go level, you go down.
Yeah.
Because if you're like, for me, I was a good student all around. I was an athlete. I used to tell my boys, I used to play basketball and football. I mean basketball and netball and volleyball, and they're like, nah, man. Yeah, that was fun. That was me. Yeah, it was hard. It was really challenging. You're thinking to yourself, will I ever get out of this? I came here thinking, oh, it's Australia.
Yeah.
I'll go to university. Oh, I mean, you have
You're
all
already
this picture. You're
educated
already
and
educated. I've got English. I'm ready to slot in. I
of
mean, that's
course.
how life should pan out,
Of
right?
course.
But life doesn't happen that way.
Yeah.
In most things, you'd find that you have your plan. You have the way in which it should go. I'd already seen my first curved ball when all my friends were going to university, and I didn't go to university. And I'm like, that's wrong. But then what came along was finding a husband somewhere
Yeah.
else. So that's okay. So you have that kind of memory
Yeah.
to work on. And then whilst I was working too back home, I researched the exam, the economics paper that didn't allow me to go to university. I did that all
Yeah.
by myself.
Yeah.
So then you're looking down and you've got strength within. So you know that you have that energy. You can tap into that at the right time.
Yeah.
So that was that. And then coming here and not understanding people, and then you're biding your time and saying, look, it's a new beginning. It's a new place. I don't understand the system.
Yeah.
I don't have anyone to fall on except for my husband.
Yeah.
Because as you come, there are different pathways. So you have the skilled migrants who may have an idea about what Australia is, what to expect, what they're coming to do. And then you have the humanitarian migrants from refugee backgrounds
Yeah.
who have the help of settlement agencies to help them, show them around to do what. Then you have the family reunion migrants
Yeah.
who would come to join a family member or a community. So basically, who you join or the community that you join and the capital that they have, the knowledge that they have,
Yeah.
will shape how you go ahead
Yeah.
or how you go along. So it's left to that family member, which is my husband.
Yeah.
So that was quite difficult.
Yeah.
And this is a new marriage, and you're trying to work things out and trying to figure everything out.
Yeah.
New husband, new wife, new everything.
And also because I think back home we're so used to having family around us.
You're used
Now
to
you
it.
just have that one person.
And let me tell you, in those days in '92, we didn't have like all these phones and things around. We didn't have Zoom. We had snail mail, and then we had the Telstra phone call.
Yeah.
1 minute was about $3,
Oh,
70 something cents. So you can't just be calling anyone. You're virtually on your own, trying to make sense of it all.
Yeah.
And having hope and that resilience that you look around and you're like, well, if these people are able to do so and so, maybe I can do it too. Watch how they do it. Maybe I can do it too.
Yeah.
And then have that inner talk with yourself.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of inner talk that went on with me, trying to work things out and hope that things will get better.
Yeah, and one thing you said that really resonated with me is, for me as well, because I'm learning I came here, I didn't speak the English. So I had to learn English, a completely different language. And so it was really hard for me to excel at school. And for me, that was considered like me not being intelligent enough, and it isn't. So I know a lot of people kind of take I can't speak English, I can't do things right in English, so it must mean that I'm not intelligent enough, I'm not good enough, not worthy. What do you say to that?
I would say that you're worthy. I would say that English is not, how would I put it? English is not equal to knowledge.
Yeah.
So if you don't have English and you're willing to learn and you have the capabilities, you're halfway there.
Yeah.
And we view life in such a way, we're conditioned to view life in accolades, and I did this and I passed that. That is great. It's really lovely. But there's also that part, the small beginnings. I keep telling people that don't despise your humble beginnings, because it is on those beginnings that you have built your life.
Yeah.
So if you're getting rid of your foundation, then what have you got? You've got nothing to stand on.
Yeah.
So failure is
It's
helping
not a
you.
bad thing. It's not.
No,
It just
it's
means
not.
you're learning.
It
That's
means you're
all.
learning. It's a different trajectory. It means you've got something to build on,
Yeah,
and we've all got different talents and gifts.
of
So you're
course.
failing maybe because you're looking where you shouldn't be looking. You're in the wrong direction, or you need to be propped and put somewhere
Yeah,
else. So, and whose definition then is that failing? Because we tend to also lead our lives thinking that we need to live to some people's standards.
yeah,
So we come from contexts where you have to be a lawyer, an engineer, a doctor, that kind of thing. So if you're not one of those, then you're a failure.
yeah,
So my son, my firstborn son is a carpenter.
yeah.
And then one day we were having a talk, and then he said, "But mom, yeah, but who makes the chairs that you sit on? Think about it."
That's true.
That's
Because
true.
we need
So if we
everyone at the end
all
of the
went
day.
to be lawyers, and who will be making our chairs?
Yeah,
Think about the plumber. But we come from a context where everyone has to be a lawyer, everyone
yeah.
has to be a
A doctor,
doctor, everyone has to be
engineer.
an engineer.
Yeah,
That's part of the colonial legacy that we have, embraced, and everyone.
yeah,
And so we need to also look at other aspects of life as well,
yeah,
that it is your life and where you're going. And it may not necessarily be the same as what Joe Blow was doing in their life.
yeah,
You've got your own life to lead, you've got your own standards, you've got your own background, you've got your own history.
yeah.
Embrace it and work with it.
Definitely.
Yeah. And even if you fail, dust yourself off. Keep going.
100%.
That was my thing. It's okay.
Yeah,
I've learned from my own failure that it's not the end. It may be a curveball that is turning you into a different direction.
definitely. And I think sometimes best lessons are learned when you fail, because then you realize who you are and you form, I guess, a deeper and a stronger identity. So I think definitely
It gives you time to pause and reflect.
it
It,
does.
it gives you time to think which direction you want to go, and if you're on the right path, maybe you need to realign a few things.
Yeah,
Maybe that is not for you.
yeah.
Yeah.
So how did you embrace your African identity? Because I can't imagine it being that easy. You're living in a Western world where the majority is, I guess, white or European. So how did you embrace your African identity? And was it easy?
I can't remember being anything else but an African woman. So
Of course.
to me, this is who I am. I mean,
Yeah.
people who know me know that this is me. I am myself as much as I can be.
Yeah.
I think when you come here and you come with your values and you see diversity, there's no need to hide who you are.
Yeah.
There's no need to shy away from your Africanness and what makes you sparkle and spark.
Yeah.
There's no point being
Definitely.
something that you're not. So I'm naturally the way I am.
Yeah.
And that's how I try to promote anything that will reflect well on us being African people.
Yeah.
And that embracing of African identity and representation go hand in hand,
Yeah.
because at some point an African identity was not so pleasant,
It's-
because Africa was equated in here
Yeah.
with being refugee.
Yeah.
And I thought that was quite sad, because they're different pathways and they're different characteristics of human beings.
Yeah.
And so for African people who have a long history of being here, even though it seems quite recent, why not say things how they are? Why not see African people through the lens that will reflect well on them? We don't need to
Yeah.
be put down and put under the umbrella of refugee before we are accorded, the standing that we need to be accorded as part of a multicultural Australian society.
Yeah.
I wear my hair African. I wear my African clothes
Yeah.
when I could. I speak my language at home. I named my children, my husband and I gave our children African names so that they're Australian. They will grow up and know that they're Australian. But at the same time, we wanted them also to understand and know that Africans don't come here as a blank sheet that have come. They have a history.
Yeah,
They're
of course.
hybrids. They're
Yeah.
transnationals.
Yeah.
The belonging to different contexts and
And that
different
is such a
places.
beautiful thing. It's
And
not a
that
bad
is the
thing.
beauty. That's multiculturalism. It's
Yeah.
the norm. So embrace it. That's the heritage we can, as parents, we can give you, and then you give it to your grandchildren and make Australia the rich multicultural context that it is.
Yeah.
So
And I know a lot of young people are born here, just like your kids. So they don't have that value. They don't have like I feel like when you're growing back home, you have certain value instilled in you, and the culture and the people around you influence you to think different ways. And here, when you grow up here, you also think differently. So I feel like there's a conflict between young people within them to be like, okay, I'm an African, but the way that I guess Australia wants me to be is in a certain way in order to be accepted, and so there's that conflict. What advice would you give young people to kind of really understand who they are and identity as African and Australian and it being a beautiful thing?
So we have a saying in Ghana.
Yeah,
So the saying is it in Ghana? It's in Ghana and it's in tree.
yeah,
I'll say the tree one because I've said, did I say that one before? Well, I'll say the tree one. So the tree have a saying that you don't use your left finger to point to your father's house.
yeah,
And the guy also say, "Oko beku echon ocheshia." It shows that you embrace your father.
yeah,
So not just your father as an embodiment, but you embrace your background.
yeah,
You are you.
of
You're
course.
unique. You
Yeah,
look at yourself and you love yourself.
yeah,
And understand that another saying is the fingers are not the same.
they're not.
The fingers are not the same. So we're all different. And it's the beauty of it. That's what makes the world go around.
Yeah,
The diversity. So if God created you, and I'm talking from a Christian perspective
of
or a
course.
faith perspective now, and maybe the evolutionists will not agree with me, but well, if you find yourself here in the body that you are, in the skin tone color that you are, with the hair that you have,
Yeah,
with the eye that you shape that you have, with the eye color that you have, with the sort of nose that you have, with
yeah,
the lips that you have, with the body that you have, whether you're tall, you're short, embrace it. We're
yeah,
all different.
yeah,
Each and every one of us have their own things that they like about themselves and that they fear about themselves, about each other as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
So when you have a group of people together, I mean, there will be hierarchy,
of course.
and that will define how the whole people move together.
Yeah,
So we came here a little bit later. There have been groups and cohorts of migrants that have come.
yeah,
They have faced their own exclusions and maybe still facing some. And now we're here. We're in that liminal state where we're now showing who we are gradually. This morning I got a phone call from someone telling me Cameroon Jollof won on the show on Channel 7 last night. What a beauty. I'm
yeah,
like, oh, that is so nice. So
yeah,
we're gradually unfurling us as a beautiful flower coming, showing who we are gradually and being accepted that, this is part of Australian multicultural society.
yeah,
Africans are part of it. We have diverse languages being represented, being spoken in homes here that we don't know anything about.
yeah,
And then going back to values that you said, the children are born with different values. They have parents speaking in their own language at home. They may not speak their parents' language, but their languages are shaping them in some ways as well. There are nuances that they may even borrow into their own Australian English.
yeah,
So that's cool. And then in time when they have understood who they are and embraced totally who they are, that they are African Australian,
yeah,
even though they may not see it, they will in time see that. So that we know that by the third generation, maybe the language is lost. The language could be lost, but the seed is imperishable. So
of
there may
course.
be seeds in there
Yeah,
that they can hold on to and
definitely.
use, and regerminate and keep the African culture and language going because that's our legacy.
Yeah,
We lose that, and then what have we got?
definitely.
Hmm.
Oh, thank you for that. That's so beautifully put. Sorry, just give me a second. I'm gonna come in.
That's okay.
Yeah. Okay, so just a little bit more about African history in Australia, because I know that that's something that we don't hear about. That's something that we don't really understand. That there were Africans in the first fleet.
There were.
So I heard that the first time I heard that, I'm like, wait, what? So could you please tell us a little bit about African history in Australia?
So yes, there were Africans on the first fleet in 1788. There were African people on there
Yeah.
as well. I also was really blown when I heard that. The first I heard of it was in 2006.
Yeah.
When I think just was it 2007 when I just started the PhD, and I was doing a bit of research and reading around African people, and that was around the time when there was a bit of racist under what's the word, undertones
Yeah.
going on. Yeah, so I did a bit of reading, and I found that the Australian historian Cassandra Pybus had written about the African black founders that came on the first fleet, and she had even named them. So we had Black Caesar,
Yeah.
and according to Pybus, Black Caesar was the first, what's that called? The first bush ranger.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
Well, like you don't think of an African as a bushranger. Like that's such an Australian thing to say.
I mean, I'm thinking bush ranger, yes, but first bush ranger,
Yeah.
that's something totally, yeah. And then there's Billy Blue. So
Wow.
Billy Blue was also known as the Commodore.
Yeah.
And then if you've been to North Sydney, there's a place called Blues Point.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's named for Billy Blue, and their relatives are still here.
Wow.
How cool is that?
That is so cool.
Yeah. So that was before the White Australia policy, though.
Yeah.
So and then gradually we had that assimilationist sort of way of looking at intake into Australia, where you could not come to Australia if you were not the right color.
Yeah.
And then the dictation test also followed, where you had to do a dictation test in a language selected by the immigration officer as well to decide whether you could come to Australia. So it wasn't until the 60s and 70s when the White Australia policy was no more.
Yeah.
And when at that time also former colonies of Britain had formed the Commonwealth, had joined the Commonwealth, and they had gained independence.
Yeah.
So you have people coming here to Australia to study, to do studies, and most of them would go back. So you have people from Nigeria, like Ghana, in mostly English-speaking countries coming to do their education and studies and going back. That was in the 60s and 70s. And then we have this more recent wave where people came from humanitarian stream background, and from countries where English was not
Really
their
first-
language,
yeah.
the first language. So they would come without English as well. And then the adult migrant English program
Yeah.
would give them 510 hours to help them with English to settle.
Yeah.
And also they came into contact with Migrant Resource Center and things like that for settlement help.
Yeah.
So that was how previous to the 2009, 2010 era, thereabouts, there wasn't any great, agitation about Africans being here.
Yeah.
It's only in the last, decade or so that we've had this issue because African are flooding here, so to speak. And
Of course.
yeah.
So I'm more interested also on the fact that I guess with the whole racism, with the whole climate that's happening right now, which you mentioned, how how can we navigate this new? I guess I don't know what it is, but it's kind of overflow of racism, but also like with everything that's happening in America, in Britain, it just seems like it's overwhelming. How can young people or just African in Australia navigate it through, just this new climate?
So new climate has got a history.
Yeah.
So I go back to history, and for me, history is also quite important. If you don't know your history, then you don't know where you're going. Sort
Of
of.
course.
The accounts once again will say Sankofa.
Yeah.
So go back and fetch and understand all these rumblings on why racism. I mean, we've talked about 1788, where at that time color was not an issue, and then gradually color becomes an issue.
Of course.
And then you mentioned going to the US and all that.
Yeah.
It's all related to slavery,
Of course.
and it goes on. So slavery Stop colonialism has stopped, but mentally, has
Yeah,
it?
of course.
Has it stopped?
Yeah.
Has it stopped? So we need to look at issues with to do with social justice. We need to look at issues to do with equality, equity. How are we going to go forward? How are we? And when I say we, as you said, the young ones, we're in the minority.
Of course.
We're newer.
Yeah.
We're not in positions of power or anything. But it doesn't take away from the fact that as human beings, as individuals with agency, as individuals with choice, we can choose
Yeah.
and decide how we see, what perspective, what lens do we use? Do we get sad and discouraged and sit down and say no? That will mean that we defeated the
Yeah.
battle. No. So we don't. We hold on firm to our beliefs and our core values and understand that we're part of here. Yes, there is racism. We cannot deny that. It's evident. My child, when he was around 6 years old, came home one day and wanted to be white. Mom, and I'm like, son, I mean, this is it.
Yeah.
That's how God created us. But how will a child come like that?
Yeah.
How will a child know that they're different? How will they know? It's all these micro messages
Yeah.
in places and domains where we're present.
Yeah.
You get these messages. You go shopping. You just have this. You can't even name it, but you know the look.
You know it.
There's certain subtleties
Yeah.
that you know. But we're here.
Of course.
We're here to stay. And the young ones need to understand and to look to their own parents. So young ones are easy to, when they want to identify with their peers, to kind of distance themselves with us, the old ones. But old ones have a bit of wisdom.
Yeah, of course.
Speak to your parents and understand. Talk to them. You may not have the language, but this love has a common language that parents can give to their children.
Yeah.
And respect from the children also to the parents. So that gap need not be there. We grew up in a context where we did things with our aunties, our uncles, everything together.
Yeah.
But life has changed and you're here with various. So if it's not your birth auntie or not, we've made friends.
Yeah.
And our friends are now aunties and uncles to our children. So even if it's not your parents, you can learn from your other auntie. I talked about my mentor who I didn't have any aunties and uncles then here, but my mentor at that time in my undergraduate year took me under her wings, or I listened to her.
Yeah.
So you have things to fall on. Those are resources that you can use. In my PhD years, I had distinguished Professor Pila as my primary supervisor, very beautiful, helpful person, and my associate was Dr. Kimiya Takahashi.
Yeah.
And they both together, shaped the way that you see things and helped you along to understand. So you have that relationship with people.
Yeah.
That's how it is. That people can get out of some of these waves that put them down.
Yeah. Thank you for that. All right. So this is your thesis.
Yes, it
I don't know
is.
if you can see. So could you please tell us a little bit about it?
Okay, so this is my baby.
Your
This is
baby.
my thesis. And the title of my thesis is Language, Education and Settlement,
Yeah.
a Sociolinguistic Ethnography on, with and for Africans
Wow,
in
that sounds
Australia.
deep.
It is. When I started doing this PhD, I didn't see much being done about Africans that I could recognize myself
Yeah.
in. So I decided that we need a better representation here.
Of course.
And so any research that I did on African people will not be on them,
Yeah.
but it will be with them so that the voices are heard.
Yeah.
So that we can get a better representation than what we were having about African people. So that was my on, with and for approach.
Yeah.
So I interviewed 47 African men and women,
Yeah.
and in Sydney and in a regional rural setting, and it was amazing to hear people's different stories. I had a whole heap of observational data as well as an ethnographer,
Yeah.
visiting people in their homes, doing life with them, all sorts of other things I did. And I had a mass of data
Yeah.
to analyze. So what I did, coming from a background and knowing about having English and not having English, then having education and not having education,
Yeah.
for me it was quite important to use that lens of language and education as a prism to look at my participants.
Yeah.
So rather than analyze them as a whole, I had four typologies of African people for analysis. I had group one, who I call those who arrive with English
Yeah.
and with education.
Yeah.
And then group two was with education and without English.
Yeah.
So people who would be coming from francophone African countries like the Congo.
Yeah.
So they have English, they have education in a different language, which is French, or they may have education in a different language, which is Arabic,
Yeah.
from Arabophone country. So that's group two. Group three is with English, but with little education. So people who come from backgrounds where English is the language, official language,
Yeah.
like Ghana or so, but they haven't had much education,
Yeah.
or people from Sierra Leone or Liberia or things like that. So that's group three.
Yeah.
And group four would be people who come from where there's no English and then, or very little English,
Yeah.
and then no education.
Yeah.
So then their trajectories were quite different,
Of course.
quite different. So rather than having a blanket, a characteristic of African people who are not settling and doing all sorts of things, and these people are depending on handouts and things.
Yeah.
When you pass them into that four groups, you're able to see the different issues
Of
that
course.
presents for each of the group.
Definitely.
But not just issues also, but contributions as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you have people from group three who had English but didn't have literacy, but here they're doing so well.
Of course.
They're working. You have people who have set up their own businesses because they have the savvy, the business know-how. They have ethnic businesses that doing hairdressing, hair braiding,
Yeah.
all sorts of things, and contributing to the society. You will not be able to see that if you're using the lens of refugee. And I spoke to people from, so that group is made up of people from all the three pathways.
Yeah.
So it's not just skilled migrants, but refugee background as well as family reunion.
Yeah.
That gives you the beauty of the African presence here.
Yeah.
We're diverse and we're different.
Yeah.
And we're also similar in our differences.
Definitely. I love the fact that you distinguish it, because I feel like one of the issues that everyone intend to put African in one category, and as if that's just it. But the fact that you distinguish it and you separate it, and so that you can kind of pinpoint where the contribution, what the issues are, I think that's a beautiful way to go, and that's the best way to do research. So thank you for that. And how can people get access to your research?
Well, yes. So one group that I belong to is called the Language on the Move.
Yeah.
So the Language on the Move website was founded by distinguished Professor Ingrid Pillar,
Yeah.
my PhD supervisor, and my associate supervisor at that time was Dr. Kimie Takahashi. They founded the Language on the Move website. It's a sociolinguistic website. It's got lots of different blogs about different topics.
Yeah.
Multilingualism, sociolinguistics, all sorts of things. At the moment, there's a lot on COVID as well.
Yeah.
But if you go to the Language on the Move Hall of Fame,
Okay.
then you will see my PhD amongst other PhDs that distinguished Professor Pillar has supervised.
Wow.
So head to Language on the Move and help yourself to all the material, other resources as well. And currently we have, on COVID, we have different blog posts going on Language on the Move.
Yeah.
So
All right, well, thank you for that. Okay. So, yeah, we're coming to an end of the interview. But before we do, I just what message would you give to African Australian living in Australia at the moment? Do you have any message that you would like to kind of share or the way that you look at things or what got you through, just coming from Ghana, having to raise kids, I mean, having to raise your family here without any help, and also working and studying and juggling, just all this other stuff. Like, what message would you give to African Australians? Or just anyone
So
who's watching
the
this?
parents or the youth or
Yeah, just anyone.
sorry, anyone who's watching.
Yeah.
Well, my take on message will be that as an African Australian person,
Yeah.
the way African precedes Australia shows a history. It shows a foundation,
Yeah.
and Australia builds on it. So that's how I see myself as an African Australian. It's multi.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're used to the mono. So monolingual, monocultural.
Yeah.
Yeah. And mono would tend to position you a certain way and make the multi or the bi look weird or not part of the norm.
Yeah.
But the multi has a different dimension that they add to the mono
Yeah.
that makes beauty, that creates the vibrant diversity
Of course.
that we do have. So why not embrace that and bring that along rather than put down where you're from? That everything African, and I think for most parents initially, for some of the parents, I would say, it's the way we talk about where we're from that translates into how our children will see us, where
Yeah.
we're from, and then their identity. So we need to understand those little things. Children are like sponge.
Yeah.
So someone said, well, if you want to eat well, start eating your vegetables first, because then when your child comes and sees you eating, they'll go for veggies rather than going for meat. So it's what we do. The subtle little things that they're watching. If all we do is say negative things about where we're from, then of course our children don't want to identify with that.
Yeah.
But if we embrace who we are, and if we embrace, for some have come for economic reasons, some came for a better life, some came because they were fleeing, all sorts of reasons have brought us here.
Yeah.
So just because we're here doesn't mean that we back home and all that.
Yeah.
Because if we do, then that's a reflection of what we're doing, and then our children will not embrace that because it's not beautiful.
Yeah.
It's ugly to them, and they don't want a bar of it.
Yeah.
But if we embrace who we are, if we refrain from putting down, we can correct. Yes, I'm not saying back home everything is perfect, and that's life. I mean, there's no perfect place, but we have to be careful how we kind of frame where we're from, because it trickles down,
Of course.
and we want to give them that positive outlook to life that they need to have a bit. So balance things a bit, balance things and show them. I know that when we're talking to children, like back home, when you're doing things, you're in the kitchen, mom is showing you to do things. I used to do a lot of things with my dad. I mean, both mom and dad, will be sitting next to dad and we'll talk and go to the farm and do. It was exciting. And those are the times that they share things, or you watch them, how they relate with other people, and they share ideas and all that. We may not have that here. But now we've got Zoom.
Yeah.
We can Zoom in and we can
Yeah.
talk to relatives. We can phone calls. There's social media around. We can embrace both. It's a global world now that, hey, the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
Don't limit yourselves, young ones. Don't be afraid to hold on to your identity. Don't be afraid to live your life. Don't be afraid to take risks.
Yeah.
Ask questions. Do things. That's the beauty of it. You have all these opportunity, I think, here.
Yeah.
And life will not stand back and everything is even and equal for you to just do things, and there won't be rough patches.
Yeah.
Yes, there will be, but it's how we navigate those, how we're able to do things, how we're able to go forward regardless.
Yeah.
That is where the beauty lies. So that's the take-home message.
Oh, thank you so much. That's so beautifully put. And thank you for being here with us and, just your passion for growth and being an African. We really appreciate that and some of the amazing that you spoke about today. Um, I guess that's the end of the interview and thank you. Thank you for watching today and we'll see you next time. All right. Bye.